English translation, 51st Contact Tuesday, 27th April, 1936, 1726 HRs.
It was all a bit of an unfortunate thing with the lecture trip, but I hope it will work out better next time.
Sure, but you should obviously make a little effort to organize yourself, even if these things do not suit you.
I have thought of that, and I am going to try. But during my short journey, various questions arose. I was also asked many questions. Do you have time to answer all these questions for me?
Sure, I am in no hurry.
All right, thank you. My first question is about Mario Bertossi, whom you told me was a real contact person. Can you give me more detailed information about him regarding his contact, its value, and the connections, etc.?
Sure, but these things are not very pleasant.
Then why did you name him to me as a contact person?
Because he actually had a technical contact, but it was in the range of seconds.
Then please give me more information.
This Mario Bertossi is a rather unpleasant person in terms of exploring and spreading the truth, which you will see from my explanations. For years he has been concerned with matters of frontier and spiritual science-based ideas, of which in reality he has no knowledge at all. His consciousness-based as well as his spiritual level is still so low that he has not yet been able to grasp even the most minimal basic knowledge of the spiritual teaching. Unknowingly, however, he unleashed completely uncontrollable powers onto himself, forcing a certain form of being to transmit a short message to him. It was a message concerning a disease of the human being on the earth. However, Mario Bertossi completely misinterpreted this message because his statements regarding the information he received were very flawed in their accuracy. But since he does not have the ability of a clear consciousness understanding as well as no logic, it is not surprising that he was not able to interpret the message correctly, which is why his statements are completely worthless. In addition, the data was transmitted to him in a technical, impulse telepathic form, thus he was not able to recognize that it was a technical impulse telepathic transmission form at all, neither were his employees. His assumption was that his statements originated from his own ability to think, which he nevertheless deliberately misrepresented as telepathic transmissions of foreign intelligences. But since the technical impulse telepathic transmission had actually taken place through his coercion, and a few of his statements are of importance, one must accept him as a real contact person. Very regrettable for this person is the fact that, as a completely ignorant life form, he was able to compel alien intelligences which, however, do not belong to us to a transmission. Equally unfortunate is the fact that Mario Bertossi is very selfish and lacks any ability to think logically. This is also the reason why he tries to drag all true contacts into the mud and trample on all truth, which you may have noticed. He is a person who does not accept any logical speech or opinion of another person because he is unable to grasp logic at all. He believes he is greater than he really is. The truth, however, is that he does not possess any valuable knowledge and only promotes pure fantasy creations of his own design. In other words, this means that he is completely uneducated in spiritual matters and the teaching of the spirit itself, and truly does not have the slightest knowledge. All his statements concerning alleged spiritual values and concerns are just as much fantasies of his own making as his alleged evidence, with which he tries to influence his environment at every opportunity and assumes that it will be intimidated by this stupidity. If it were not for the fact that he was forced into a short contact which he did not really recognize, I would simply call him a charlatan and cheater from my side. Since the forced contact actually took place, however, I unfortunately cannot do this, because this contact fact remains, because he does not simply lie about it, but presumably names a few facts correctly, although he has no knowledge of the truth of the technical impulse telepathic contact.
You speak a very hard language for this man. But when I think about your words, I really have to agree with you, because we received similar impressions when we were with him on the 21st of April. My impression was that the man has no knowledge of spiritual values and concerns, and that he only wants to show off in order to be a great man.
You have observed very closely. It is also advisable to keep away from this person because he works against the truth in every manner. The man is a person who is rightly called a know-it-all. He holds no mentionable value for you or any other person. It would therefore also be of value if you would convey this message to him. It is also important that you spread the word about these things, because Mario Bertossi's dishonest machinations are likely to mislead a larger circle of persons again, even though people have already come close to the path of the truth.
I am sure he will not be happy about that.
That is certainly the case, but it is also the case with Mr. Hans Jacob in Wetzikon, because he is working in the same direction.
Why do you still think of him? He was also in Munich on the 21st of April. He obviously had enough time to get there, but not for our discussion days.
I know that, and we now know with absolute certainty that he is responsible for spying on you and your group members and stalking you at every time of the day or night. This trustee has been working against you and against the whole group for quite some time, and he has established various malicious connections in this respect, including with Mario Bertossi and the Duist in Wiesbaden. His actions, however, are of quite stupid and primitive form, and he does not consider that his negation against the truth will cause him insurmountable damage to his health.
So he is also responsible for the chase on the 28th of March, when I was spied on with cars and mounted parabolic antennas.
Sure, and he is also responsible for trying to hunt me down with those primitive combustion engine aircraft and those jet engine planes when you made the tape recordings in the Frecht area.
You mean the pilot porters, the Big Bertha Ju-52, and the jet fighters?
Sure, all this has to be weighed into his account. This also includes bad written defamations concerning you, which he spreads in Switzerland and Germany as well as in America.
So then he could have actually played the traitor in our own ranks since time immemorial?
Sure, he is and was the traitor. But first, he did not commit treason in a conscious form. Only recently has he consciously worked against all of us. It is fundamentally due to his low intelligence and religious sectarianism that everything was triggered by him. Since I released him from my control, he has finally surrendered himself to everything negative.
You are talking about him being of low intelligence. What form should I understand by this?
The consciousness-based and rational-based, as is also the case with Mario Bertossi. I hope, by the way, that you stick to my wish not to get involved with him anymore, because before you can do that again, he has to overcome hard teachings and change his forms of observation.
You can rest assured that I have followed it and will continue to do so. I have a letter here from Mario Bertossi which you should read.
If that is your wish, these lines are quite lowly intelligent and even primitive. They correspond entirely to the lower conscious-based level of this person, still very low-standing and even underdeveloped. You should not try to answer those lines. It should be enough if you send him a copy of my statements about him without a personal response. This would be unnecessary work for you, for this person is too taken up with himself and his charlatan and foolish imaginations to accept teaching words from you or any other person.
If you think so, do you not find that you are going very hard on him?
On the contrary, I should use an even harder language. You are far too mediatory in these particular cases, which is why I have to take the floor. It is all about much more than just uncontrollable fanaticism, megalomania, and the fraudulent charlatanry of some ignorant elements. Think only once of the actions of Hans Jacob, who has clenched certain waves of anger in himself, only because he himself cannot be the person who functions in the first and most important place. To this day, he cannot cope with the fact that another person has to fill in this position and not him. He has not yet become aware that with his minimal and rather miserable education, which comes only from books and the like, he will never be able to work himself into a position like yours. But the same goes for Mario Bertossi, who also believes himself to be called to higher things, but who is not even able to give advice of the slightest importance to those of your group, who will still come to you in some time completely ignorant in spiritual matters.
I see, now I know a little more. But that leads me straight to another question, namely the tricky 3-point at Bachtel. Did you find anything there now?
Quetzal has been very busy with this. Yes, he did not make an effort for nothing. At 3 different locations, extremely small amplifier stations were set into trees at intervals of 230 meters each. These stations, with a size of just under 1 square centimeter, functioned and served as relay stations which transmitted interference oscillations from a central transmitter in very intense and dangerous values. The central station floated in a constant position high in free space, but we could not clarify its origin. We only have probability calculations for this, but with only 47 values, they allow a very small evaluation.
I understand, but I am still thinking about a certain possibility.
We have also considered this possibility, and there are indeed several things that point to Giza.
What do we do now?
Quetzal has removed the stations, but this does not mean that such devices will not be reinstalled elsewhere. These things, however, are to be monitored by us in the future, which will reduce the potential for disruption.
Thank you, girl. That is very kind of you.
It is also in our interest.
I do not want to argue about it. I have other things. About 2 weeks ago, I found out that I made a terrible mistake in writing down your last reports, which I then explained to Mr. Schutzbach when he asked me a question. I thought you told me Earth was 646,646,000 years old. This was in connection with the oil production of the Earth and the ores and minerals, etc. Do you remember that?
Of course, but why do you ask?
Since I constantly lack the time to correct the reports after writing, I did not notice that I wrote millions instead of billions. I simply twisted the values, which is why I wanted to make a corresponding attachment to point out this and other spelling mistakes, etc. Unfortunately, I have not found the time yet.
This is not of great importance because all group members, etc., are oriented about the fact that you lack the time for such corrections. So they will not complain about the confused values if you can make a correction later. Besides, we are correcting the contact reports together, so we will correct this error as well.
This may be correct, but not for other people, such as a Herr Ahrens in Rimstind, or as the village in Germany is called. This man is concerned with astronomy and has complained in writing about this error.
That is why you do not have the slightest reason to get upset. His understanding of things would probably be very poor if he, as an expert in these matters, did not realize that there was a writing error. If he had processed the whole and taken it in with clarity, that he would have recognized that it was only a case of mistaken spelling. But the earthly astronomers in particular live in pure assumptions and make assertions that are foreign to any reality. For the orientation of this Mr. Arend, however, I would like to explain to you here that you are to tell him that it is only a matter of a writing error. The exact age of the Earth's existence is 646,646,000 years, calculated from the time when the first gas atoms were formed, merged, and later collected. The evolutionary process up to the solid planetary body thus took about 641,641,000 years, after which the basic life forms developed later. from which the first lichen-like flora forms developed, from which gradually in the course of further billions of years higher plants and later also animal forms developed. Then after further billions of years, human beings were created as independent life forms, which however were already influenced soon after their emergence by space-traveling foreign human races. This was about 8.5 to 4.5 million years ago. And since Earth has existed as a solid finished mass, this is a period of about 5,000,000,000 years. Its entire development, however, took about 646,646,000 years from the very beginning of the first gas atom formation. In ignorance of the real events surrounding planetary formation, the earthly scientists calculate all the relevant concerns in false values. Consequently, they achieve endless false results, and they do not want to be instructed. For centuries, they have tried to calculate and prove all things according to their very faulty mathematics, but they rarely achieve truthful results, even in relation to the real distances to the stars. Nevertheless, they claim that their calculations correspond to the truth, even if they often have to correct them after centuries, which is very difficult for them because they do not want to admit their mistakes to the masses. They are and remain simply the incorrigible know-it-alls.
That is known to me, unfortunately. But then another question. I was able to take photos of the Eye of God. You told me at that time that this structure was a work of human creation, a memorial of a megalomaniac god, so to speak. Is that really true?
Sure, you doubt my testimony?
Certainly not. I just wanted to check it out again. But is this structure the only such work in the universe?
Your question is truly very illogical. The Eye of God was created by a human being, as I have explained to you before. Such things, however, can only be produced by a human being if the universal force and all natural processes permit such a creation, which in other words means that corresponding models of natural origin must be present. This means that cosmic forces and formations, etc., of any life forms can only be transformed into certain values and effects if these values and effects already exist. From this you can infer that for the Eye of God there must already have been an example, namely of natural origin, otherwise the Ashwish would not have been able to create it.
Yet I have known that.
Of course, you had to, even if not in astronomical matters. All the more your question seems illogical and even lowly intelligent to me. It must be clear to you that if the Ishwish was able to create the Eye of God, then there must already have been similar models in natural form, of which in this galaxy alone, 602 are known to us in smaller or larger dimensions, while in the entire universe there are countless numbers.
Aha, that is exactly what I wanted to know, not for me, because the question comes from someone else, also from this Mr. Ahrens in Rimsting. Here, I also have a letter from him. You should read it sometime.
Hence this lowly intelligent and illogical question. Can I have a look? I have already answered the first two questions, and there is no need to get involved with the rest. The person asking these questions is obviously caught up in earthly astronomy data and the like, and consequently cannot confront the truth. Obviously, he does not know the speed changes in the orbit around the central sun of the constellation Times, which also includes the Earth and the whole system, so he probably calculates the orbit with only 25,129 instead of 25,860 Earth years. The fact that he still refers to scientific principles in this is probably a little too much. For how can one presume such things if one has based one's knowledge only on assumptions that do not even come close to the truth? The fact that the miscalculations concerning the vernal equinox, as this is called here, make up only a fraction of a second of arc and consequently only 2 Earth years for the total cycle, is directly an incentive to laugh. Here, the human being of the earth does not even reckon with their time and has interspersed it with serious miscalculations, and there they want to indulge in things of which they know and understand even less than their own existence as a material life form. I therefore see no need at all to answer these questions even approximately.
You are quite blastedly radical today.
I feel fully justified in doing so, as these questions come from people whom you really should have spoken conscientiously to. In Munich, you talk to them, and they have no other ideas than to make your otherwise hard work even more difficult. From all their speeches, on the one hand, only envy, and on the other hand, the incorrigibility speaks. I am very sorry for you, and I am only standing up for you because you do not do it yourself in a proper manner.
This is not so bad. I can take a lot already.
But I do not like these things and machinations, because your task is far too important for you to be treated like this.
Now I finally see you angry for once. I like you thus as well. You look very pretty.
It gives me absolutely no pleasure, and if I could, then I would do some things.
Which fortunately you are not allowed to do. Leave it alone. You know, you cannot be vengeful. I had to tell one of my companions that, because he really wanted to take an oath to beat up certain people thoroughly and extensively. So be reasonable and do not worry me too much. That is enough.
It is not easy for me because I am really angry.
I am very sorry. I did not mean to upset you with my asking.
It is really not your fault. But the human beings of the earth are often able to make my self-control collapse with their illogicality and unreasonableness. Sorry about that.
You do not need to apologize. I also raved around in Vienna and also in Germany and Switzerland just because of a stupid telephone, so to speak. So please let it be good. You may be very pretty in your anger, but it is pointless if you get angry at the same time. I cannot tell you otherwise, because I am too coarse for such consolations.
You are very kind, thank you. I did not think it was possible to ever lose control of myself.
You are only human, though much further up than us earthworms.
That has its validity, but nevertheless...
Please, it is really understandable that you got angry. With such primitive machinations, one must really begin to become irritated. Even though I am very sorry for your being agitated, I am still happy about it somehow. It makes you very human, and on the other hand, you look unusually pretty in anger. It is not a flattery, it is a statement.
You are really very sweet.
Do not talk about it. It is actually so.
Sure, if you say so. I thank you.
It is all right. I was prepared for an outburst of rage. When I drove with my colleagues from Vienna to Munich, I caught a symbolic picture that revealed your anger to me. I had about 24 hours to gnaw at it before I was able to decipher it, because it was a completely strange picture to me. I did not even know where it came from, and 3 of the signs were absolutely alien to me.
That is incredible. You do not even generally know these picture forms.
I did it anyway, and I found out that it meant something like, there is anger blazing in me.
That is very correct. There were some things that escaped me that I had simply lost control of, especially when I realized that you were homeward bound. I analyzed the why and found out that it was mainly due to the negative impact of Hans Jacob and Mario Bertossi that the whole undertaking went off course. I already located these powers on the 21st of April in Munich when you had a conversation with Bertossi. But I could not do anything about it because I would have had to use force.
So did you monitor what happened? Is that why you were over Germany? You said hello to us and let us see you when we drove to Vienna. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. We were all very happy to see you.
Sure, I wanted to monitor things, especially because we found out that Hans Jacob, out of pure stupidity and vindictiveness and envy, indirectly initiated all the surveillance and pursuit chases. The final prompt for my flight to Munich resulted from the fact that Hans Jacob went there himself.
I understand, but what are you going to do?
I cannot answer that question yet. First, I have to consult with the others. It would be appropriate for me to teach these two people a hard lesson.
You cannot be vindictive. On the other hand, remember that these men are somehow like little children who just squirm because they do not have and cannot achieve what they imagine. It is admirable, by the way, that you could hold on to yourself so long before you let your anger run free. I must have noticed from the very beginning that everything trembled in you, and that your harsh words were only suppressed anger.
These unpleasant appearances cannot be concealed from you?
Hardly, because I have personal experience in it, at least from the past. But let us not do that now. I just think there should be enough talking about these things. Look here, wait a minute. This is a book by a Professor Sloman. I am to hand it over to you. Maybe you have the goodness to deal with it in detail, and then express your opinion. It is very important for the man to hear your verdict on this.
If it is your wish, then I would like to do it. You will have to be patient, though, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Of course, thank you very much. But now something else. Especially in Vienna, I was asked a lot of questions to arrange a contact with you. Is there not a possibility?
You know, I cannot respond to that kind of demand. It remains that we are only in personal contact with you alone. There is no possibility of circumventing this provision, which is what the High Council has ordered.
A brief visual contact.
On the night of the 23rd of April 1976, Billy J. Birchinger and I drove in the car from Munich to Vienna. On the way, in the Linz area, we stopped for a short break. We had just got back into the VW to drive on. Suddenly, Billy rips open the door on his side and shouts, "She's right above us!" With an acrobatic effort, we also jump out of the vehicle. Really, directly above us, a red triangle moves swiftly along. It seems to come from the Munich area and is now aiming towards Switzerland. I am directly above you and greet you. This is what Simyase had just let him know, Billy said. Exciting and at the same time gratifying, this greeting. A short time later, we rolled on towards Vienna. On the way back from there, we also experienced an interesting interlude. Billy was apparently dozing in the car, but suddenly he grabbed a pen and with his eyes closed he scribbled strange symbols on a piece of paper. Just like us, he could not make sense of these symbols, nor did he know where they came from. They were simply there, picked up like a stray radio message. He thought he could understand some of the signs. But for the rest, he studied it all the way to Switzerland and spent another night there. Then he had the solution. Anger is burning in me. And that must have escaped Simyase uncontrollably, as she also confirmed to him later. All the difficulties and hardships we had to face on the unsuccessful lecture tour must have aroused her very much, especially when she noticed that we were on our way back. Mr. Meyer has had some experience with symbols of this kind. After all the information he receives reaches him in this manner. His work then consists of translating them literally into our German and typing them down.
Exceptions were only a few Earth humans who were your teachers and with whom telepathic contacts had always existed. For my part, therefore, I cannot change these provisions, and the High Council will not do so either. Apart from your living Dharmawara teacher, only you are capable of our cooperation.
Obituary.
On Saturday morning, the 26th of June, 1999, my venerable dear teacher, monk Dharmawara Mahathera, passed away at the age of 110. He was conscious until the last moment before he passed away painlessly and peacefully.
Mouse over for AI colorization.
Samdach Virabante, as he was known by his real name, was born in Cambodia in 1889 as the child of high-ranking diplomats in Phnom Penh, who provided him with a first-class European education at French schools. The highly educated young man, fluent in several languages, studied jurisprudence, worked as a lawyer, and then became a judge before rising to become provincial governor. Later, the Cambodian king appointed him the country's chief justice, and he eventually became royal advisor at a relatively young age. He quickly rose to high honors and was considered a highly respected personality. During his early adult years, he married and started a family, which produced a daughter and later grandchildren. Gradually seeking more than just professional satisfaction and fulfillment, he decided at about 40 to give up his career, leave his family and become a monk, following the teachings of Buddha. He initially lived in a hut in the forests of Cambodia and lived off what the farmers gave him. Later, he moved to India, where in 1963, when I, Billy, came to India, he was running the Ashoka Ashram in Mahrauli, near New Delhi, which he had founded and built himself. At that time, he was already 75 years old, spry and in good health. Asket sent me to Dharmawara Mahathara, as Samdak Virabhante was called by his religious name. At that time, he was already one of the most respected Buddhist teachers of our century. For a long time, my venerable teacher taught me the original Buddhist teachings, which conform to the teachings of the mind. I also learned many other things from Dharmawara Mahathara while I was working as a vet in the ashram. At that time, his two grandchildren, Phobal Cheng and her brother, lived with him in the ashram, where they were brought up and taught by him. Their parents had entrusted them to his care because of political unrest in Cambodia, where they knew they were in good hands and safe. In 1967, after I had met and married my wife Calliope in Greece in 1965, we came again on our journey together to the Ashoka Ashram, where we stayed for 2 months this time. Also, during this time, the Venerable Dharmawara Mahathara, who in the course of time had reached the highest rank as a Buddhist monk and was held in the highest esteem in his circles, taught me. Throughout the time I spent at Ashoka Ashram, I often witnessed blue-skinned visitors who sought out my venerable teacher and who inexplicably just appeared and disappeared. These blue-skinned human beings came from the underground city of Agartha, located in the Himalayan mountains, which was originally founded by extraterrestrials and is now inhabited by their descendants. After I left the Ashoka Ashram in Mahrauli in 1967, I did not hear from Dharmawara Mahathara for almost 27 years before his granddaughter, Phobal Cheng, contacted me, thus re-establishing indirect contact. In the last few years, she informed me about her grandfather and his life, and also about the fact that he had handed over the Ashoka Ashram to Tibetan monks and, at the age of 85, had moved to California to live with his grandson. There, his disciples asked him to found a Buddhist temple and monastery, which the aged monk then presided over until his passing. In America, too, my venerable teacher once again attained the highest reputation and great honors. Around the mid-90s, Dharmawara found himself in a serious health crisis. His condition deteriorated, so he was given medical care in California and Cambodia by some of his disciples who were doctors by profession. Thanks to their help, he soon recovered and resumed his teaching activities, which he continued until his passing. Dharmawara Mahathara, to whom I owe great knowledge and deep insight into Buddhist teachings, will always be remembered as my venerable, dear teacher. Billy.
Necrology by Michael Hesemann, Editor-in-Chief Magazine, 2000, Germany.
He died conscious, awake, and painless at the ripe old age of 110. Samdach Virabhante was one of the most respected Buddhist teachers of our century. Known by his religious name, the Venerable Dharmawara Mahathira, the native Cambodian provided spiritual assistance to the heads of state of Cambodia and India. He was the spiritual advisor to Cambodia's King Norodom Sihanouk and watched over the deathbed of India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. The son of an upper-class family from Phnom Penh made a career as a lawyer, judge and provincial governor, and was even appointed Chief Justice of the country by the king. But when he turned 40, he left his wife and young daughter to go into the forests and follow the teachings of Buddha. The highly educated man, sent to French schools by his parents, high-ranking diplomats, and fluent in several languages, renounced the luxuries he had known until then, cigarettes and alcohol, to live in a hut and feed on fruits and vegetables given to him by the farmers. Then he went to India to found the Ashoka mission, named after the first Buddhist king of the country, who had tried in vain to spread the teachings of Buddha in the land of the Hindus 2,300 years ago. He spent 45 years there, finally giving the monastery in Mehrauli, near New Delhi, to Tibetan refugees and going to California, where his grandson lived, while his granddaughter Phobal Cheng worked in New York as her country's UN ambassador. But the 16,000 Cambodians living in Stockton, California, asked the aged monk to found a temple and monastery, which he presided over until his death. And again pilgrims flocked to the holy man. When he passed away, even the Los Angeles Times on 3rd July 1999 paid tribute to him with an obituary. His ashes were taken to shrines in India and Cambodia. What the newspaper did not mention, Dharmawara was one of the teachers of the Swiss UFO contactor Billy Edward A. Meyer. As his granddaughter Phobal Chung revealed publicly for the first time in February 1999 at the UFO conference in Laughlin, Magazine 2000 reported, she and her grandfather witnessed the numerous UFO sightings over Ashoka Monastery. During this time, her brother and she also saw Meyer in conversation with extraterrestrials. As Phobal explained, Dharmawara also had encounters with strange, blue-skinned human beings who were rumored to have come from the mysterious underground world of Agartha. Whether he himself also had contact with Mayas, Pleiadians is one of the great secrets that the monk took with him into Nirvana. Several attempts to interview him about this failed because of the very old sage's unstable state of health for several years.
There is no doubt about that, because everything has been checked very carefully with regard to these things. It is indeed regrettable that for this difficult task, as it is imposed on you to such an enormous extent, we were only able to find one suitable life form, namely you in the case of humanity on the Earth, which now comprises more than 4,004,000,000 beings. But this cannot be changed. So you can explain to all such questioners that a personal contact with me or others of our race is absolutely impossible. What other foreign intelligences visiting the Earth do in this regard, however, is not our concern, if such contacts take place at all without our knowledge, but we are not aware of any such contacts. For my part, I have done a lot more than I should have. Thus also has Quetzal. Several times we have already made ourselves visible to various group members and demonstrated a few things to them. We did this as thanks for their efforts and the great love they show for our task and for you. Quetzal and I took responsibility for this and had to make subsequent representations to the High Council. Fortunately, however, we were not reprimanded, and we received permission to continue to make ourselves visible to the group members here and there, but only under very specific security measures. However, there is always the danger that our appearance will also be observed by outsiders, which was the case several times during the last demonstrations in particular. But personal contacts are also completely excluded here.
With regard to such contacts, there are also swinging wave-based reasons for rejecting them, which will be explained in detail later.
I am grateful to you for this information. But you know, the human beings of the Earth believe again and again that they, nevertheless, could still be accessible to a contact. Especially when they deal with certain things, they think they have a right to a contact.
I am aware of that, but it cannot be so. We have many contacts with human beings of the Earth, but all of them are only impulse telepathic in nature. We only maintain personal contact with you. All other contact persons have only small subtasks, without knowing the entire connection or even suspecting that we contact them impulse telepathically, so only you alone are orientated about all things.
It may be presumptuous of me, but I suppose I understand.
You understand very well.
It is all right. By the way, I am supposed to send you a very warm greeting from Hannelore. She works in the Ministry of Defense in Vienna. A very nice and lovely woman, I think.
That is very kind of her. Pay her my dear regards in return. I am very pleased to receive greetings from a person in such an office. I will allow myself to hold Hannelore in my thoughts and strive for her. It is admirable to find a valuable person in a Ministry of Defense. Yes, I see. I am very happy about that.
You are unfair. You are messing with my mind. I told you not to.
I have not done that. But from you very joyful thoughts come in relation to Hannelore. You have lovingly enacted yourself in them and let them escape uncontrollably. So I did not penetrate into you.
Sorry, it is my fault.
It was good, because you gave me a very precise impression of Hannelore. I find everything very valuable. Pay her my dearest regards. And if I already talk about it, then please pass on also to my dear friends my cordial and dear greetings, and above all my deepest thanks.
I want to do all this very gladly, but tell me once, what are you actually working on together? Are you not going to tell me about it? Also, I have gotten the impression that you obviously try to make some form of effort for Amata, am I right?
I cannot answer those questions. I have already told you that these things are a secret among us female beings.
Yes, women's secrets I know. But I will find out what you are up to.
You already promised you would not make any special efforts.
Of course, I'm not going to do that either. I told you that you would one day betray yourselves.
Maybe, but do not rely too much on it.
All right, I do not want to pester you either. But could I talk to Amata about certain things? Because I have experienced certain things regarding appearances, etc. You will allow me that, will you not?
Sure, there is nothing wrong with that, but please do not try to go any further.
I will stick to it.
I thank you. But now I want you to thank in my name your two friends who accompanied you and stood by you. It is a great pleasure to know them as your friends.
Thank you, dear girl, you really think of everything. I really would not have known how I was going to get through this on my own. I will give your regards. If I forget, they will still get it in writing. You know, my memory is focused on many other things, and so I often forget the closest things.
Nobody is going to scold you for that.
It is to be assumed. But now I must go, because my colleague is waiting up on the hill. I am sure he will be frozen stiff by now. My moped is unfortunately in the repair shop. I fell twice after our last contact, and now the vehicle is almost ready for demolition, and I can no longer repair it myself. It is not worth talking about, though. Also pay my dearest greetings to all, and thank you very much. Goodbye, golden treasure. One day I will hug you.
Sure, I would not be mad at you.
You are encouraging me right now. Just be careful.
I have no fear.
What do you think Dad would say?
Simyase laughed softly.
That is how you please me again. Do not think about your anger anymore.
Your words have removed it from me. Your tricks are admirable. Thank you so much. You already know how to grasp my most secret emotions?
Perhaps I have known you long enough. Often it seems to me that it has been many thousands of years.
Which you are not so wrong about. But enough now, your friend is really freezing. You have to go.
Of course, otherwise I will have to defrost him. So therefore goodbye and all love and good fortune. You have also soothed my anger. Thank you.